Hi guys, we are gonna analyze the speeches given by ministers and MPs and candidates for Singapore's general election this year, 2025. I'm very excited to dissect and have a look and see what makes someone's speech persuasive, what makes their arguments strong, and what makes someone believe what they're saying. In other words, it's the skill of getting buy-in from the audience. So as candidates speak to the large public, they need this skill of getting buy-in. They need to learn how to persuade. They need to learn how to tell stories. We're gonna analyze that. We're gonna see why it's so persuasive and why people feel like it draws them in. So let's dissect this video by PM Lawrence Wong. This is the GE 2025. It's titled PM Lawrence Wong Seeks to Renew Singapore's Leadership. Let's see.
Elections will come when they come. I would say it's not about the PAP needing a strong mandate, but Singaporeans recognizing that much is at stake for Singapore in this new environment. Because in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order for us to navigate a very challenging global environment, we will need a strong and united Singapore.
All right off the bat, you can see that PM Wong has honed really strong public speaking skills. Why? Notice he doesn't rush to answer the question. He thinks about it before he answers, and that's a mark of a great public speaker. In fact, there's a lot more on buy-in thinking rather than buy-in speaking, which is where it starts first. So think through the answers before you say it, and the more seasoned you are as a politician, as a leader, the better your answers will be. Now, if you take a look at how he answers the question, he pauses, and the pause is one of the most powerful ways to answer someone's question, especially if all eyes are on you. So pause, draw attention in. Then notice what he does. His voice is almost like a low baritone type of voice. And because of that, it does draw you in. Some types of voices have this appeal where you feel drawn into them, especially those with low, almost like a late night DJ voice. Or you could say PM Wong does seem to have that late FM DJ voice, right? And when you analyze a little bit further, what he's starting with is the method of persuasion here is he's appealing to building the stakes. And that's what any seasoned public speaker, leader, professional, C-suite should do when you want to start things off is why should I listen to you? What are the stakes here? So PM Wong is telling everyone that the reason why he's speaking is because he's going to address a high stakes situation here in Singapore. And if you listen, you'll get a payoff. So there is a promise made here, of course, in a very subtle way. So he says that the stakes are very high, and he goes on to explain why.
There is much at stake in the elections. And when the elections come, I will present my case for the PAP, for me and my team. And I hope Singaporeans will give me the chance to serve them and to serve Singapore.
Mr. Wong, you mentioned about your team. So have you decided on the team that will be going to this general election? How has the progress been? Are you looking at perhaps senior civil servants or military generals? Any people in mind?
It seems like you guys have been tracking them more closely than I have. I've said before, last year at the...
Look at the listening skill. Okay, so the reporter was asking, well, PM Wong, who's going to be on your team? Are they going to be senior civil servants? Are they going to be people of repute? So do you know what he says? He says that, well, it seems like you guys are more up to date than I am. Well, if you look at what he's doing, he's not necessarily saying yes or no. But what he's saying is he's using a skill called empathetic listening. But beyond that, he's using empathy very tactically. So the key word is, it seems like. Well, it seems like you know what I'm saying before I'm about to say it. If you notice, that is a key listening skill. To show that you are listening by telling people, well, it seems like, and then you paraphrase whatever that they said into your own words. That's what exactly he's doing. He's paraphrasing what the reporter said. Neither is he agreeing with them, nor is he disagreeing with them. It's a great skill for politicians, it's a great skill for leaders, it's a great skill for anyone who wants to show that you are listening. Now, if you notice, he did not say, oh, I understand what you're saying, I agree. Most of us have this thinking that, oh, if I need to be a good listener, I must say, oh, I understand. oh, I hear you, no, I empathize. So our thinking is, in order to show that we're listening, we have to say the words I empathize, or we have to say that I understand. Now here's the trap. If you say things like, oh, I understand, someone can easily go up to you and say, well, do you really truly understand? Right? You are not in my shoes. How could you possibly understand? You're not born in the same situation as me. How could you possibly understand? If you say something like, oh, I empathize with you, well, yes, verbally, I can hear that you're saying the word empathize, but it doesn't necessarily make me feel that you've empathized with me or understood where I'm coming from. Now, when he says, it seems like you know the situation better than I do, you are demonstrating listening skills. So it's a very core active listening skill to say, it seems like, and then you paraphrase. So you can take that feather from PM Wong's cap and follow in his footsteps.
Party conference that I'm making a great effort to renew our leadership team and to renew the PAP. I've been spending a lot of time doing that in the past 1-2 years. I think it's important because I could have just decided to do less on the renewal front and largely contest with the present team. Things will be okay in one term in the next 5 years. But if there is no renewal, I think we will feel the effects of it, not immediately, not even for the next 5 years, but certainly in the next 10, 15 years, we will feel the effects. And it is, in the end, if that were to happen, it is not just the PAP, but Singapore and Singaporeans that will pay the price. That's why leadership renewal is such an...
Now, this is what a visionary leader does. They are never short-sighted. So what PM Wong is demonstrating here is that he's already thought 5, 10, 15, many years ahead of the current elections. So he's talking about leadership renewal, how he's gonna renew the team and why he wants to renew the team rather than just let it be stagnant. So he mentions that even if he doesn't renew the team, they're gonna be okay. But he decides to renew the team to meet the anticipating needs of the future. And that's the mark of a great leader because they can anticipate what's coming ahead. Now, he demonstrates this by telling everybody that, or hinting to everyone that if he doesn't renew leadership, then there will not be new influx of ideas. So he foresees something coming, and as a leader, once you know that there's danger or there's threats coming, you prepare way before it hits and strikes. Mark of a great leader.
Priority for me, and that's why I've been working very hard in the last 1-2 years, engaging different individuals, persuading and encouraging them to take the step forward to enter politics. I would say I'm glad that some have answered the call. Some public servants have.
Notice what he did? He paused and then he looked up. And then he said, I would say that I'm glad. You notice that kind of body language? Now, studies have shown that if you pause midway in your speech, you look up, and then as if you're thinking at the corner of your eye, pause, and then you speak again, audience kind of feels a little bit connected to you because they feel that whatever you're saying is not purely on the script. Because there was a pause, there was a thinking, a slight deviation from a supposed script that's written for you. And in speaking terms, this will work well for any speaker. So how can you apply this? Next time when you're about to speak, don't rush into having to fill every silent moment. You can take the time to just pause, look up. You know what? I think it's a great idea like that. So this cue, visual cue, actually helps to draw people in.
Have indicated they are prepared to answer the call. At the same time, we continue to recruit from all different sectors, not just within the public service. We also have candidates from the private and people sectors, from academia and many other areas. We usually start with more, and then eventually we finalize to the slate of candidates that we will field in an election. That's quite typical because we start with more because along the way we expose them, we test them, and it's a two-way street. some we may feel not ready this round, we may consider next round. Some themselves, individuals themselves may decide this is not quite for me, and they may decide perhaps they don't want to continue. And that's why there will inevitably be some who decide not to proceed, and then from a larger group we come down to a eventual slate of candidates which we will field during the election. So you will see faces popping up on the ground. I'm sure the media are closely monitoring who they are, but eventually...
Now, throughout this entire time, he always has a lingering smile on his face. Do you realize that? So PM Wong has mastered the art of speaking with a smile on his face, and that's a very crucial public speaking skill. It takes a lot of practice to do that. To say something that might be of national importance, of economic importance, or political importance, but yet still have a smile at the end of what you're saying. How many people can do that? So he does that really well. Now, beyond that, what he's trying to tell you is that he has already thought about talent management, talent acquisition, and he's explained to you the process of how he selects his talent. So there's a very robust system, and not everyone's going to stay here. So he gives you a sneak peek into his thoughts and how he pick the candidates. So more information for the public. Now, if you notice, throughout the entire conversation so far, he has not repeated information, and that's what people like. How do you keep the audience hooked? You always give them new information and don't repeat information. And this is the novelty proof that I talk about a lot. Novelty brings engagement and attention. When you're going to repeat the same hash story again in one sitting, people will start to turn off. So he's doing it really, really well.
We will announce the slate of candidates when elections are called.
May I just follow up on both questions on persuading and encouraging potential candidates to join? Have you completed the process? And second question on the date. Okay, will this be your last foreign visit before the
G20? There will be visits. I mean, the international trips that I make happen year-round. When election approaches, obviously, I won't be in any position to travel, and I'll focus on elections. But before the elections, or before the campaign, and after the campaign, I will certainly make international visits, and there will be many places to visit because, like I said, I haven't completed my ASEAN the visit to all the introductory visits to all Southeast Asian capitals, and beyond ASEAN, I certainly would have to look forward to visiting other countries too, our key partners, for example, China, India, the US, many other places, Australia. So many places to go to before and after the campaign. What was your first part of the question? As I said just now,
Look at that beautiful response. Now, what was the reporter trying to do? Obviously, the reporter asked, will this be your last political visit before the elections? They're trying to bait him. What are they trying to do? They're trying to bait and see whether he's going to spill when the elections are going to happen, because that's always a question mark on our minds, right? Like, when is the election going to happen? Obviously, we have some idea when it's going to be, but we don't know exactly when, so they try to bait him. And what do you do to respond to the bait? Now, this is a crucial skill for leaders, speakers, anyone that is going to be more public-facing. You're going to be fielded questions, and sometimes it can be a little bit bait. So the first key is don't take the bait. Not easy, takes a while to identify them, but when it happens, pausing helps a lot, thinking through helps a lot. He saw that bait coming from a mile away. What did he do? He said, well, my trips happen all year round. Very generic statement. So he always feels, so since the reporter baited him with, will this be your last political visit before the elections? The topic is on traveling and trips. He responded immediately with a generic statement about trips. So he said, well, trips happen all year round. Full stop. The very generic statement. So if someone zooms in, you zoom out. That is the key. If they try to zoom in too close, too much heat, you zoom out. So, well, trips happen all year round. So, for example, someone asks you, did you eat that cookie? Well, everybody in this family loves cookies. So sometimes that's what people do. They zoom out from the situation. It doesn't necessarily mean they're saying yes or no. They could purposely do it without wanting to give too much information. So first they zoom out, and then they said, well, there are trips before, there are trips after. If you notice, he is giving very generic statement. So that's a good way to fend some of these big tactics from anyone asking the questions.
What was your first part of the question? As I said just now, we start with more, and then we eventually pin down the final slate of candidates, and that process is ongoing.
How close are you to completing it?
I think you're all asking variations of the same question, so I don't have any more things to add to the response to that question.
Now here's a very interesting take. Another reporter asked, how close are you to completing your team? And it was a question very closely linked to the previous question. So how did he say no by being very polite? Now that's an important question. A lot of my clients will ask me, I want to say no without offending them. I want to say no without sounding too too arrogant, if I can use that word. So this is one way he does it. First, the smile lingers on. If you notice, the smile still lingers. He smiles and he said, then he says something in paraphrase. He said, well, I think you're all asking something that's very closely linked together. And this is powerful. You know why? Because the best way to fend off this kind of questions is by telling people the truth, a mini truth. So if you're not comfortable with saying no, the question that you need to ask yourself is, what is the truth that you're avoiding to speak? What is the truth that you're avoiding? Because he's not uncomfortable with that truth. The truth is the person asked a question that's in the same line of questioning or line of topic as the previous reporter. So he called it out. He just called it out in a polite way. So he said, and first the small comes in and say, well, it looks like you're asking me the same questions, the same kind of questions. And then he just pauses, he just lets it hang. So the courage to speak up, the courage to call it out, the courage to have a smile on your face, the courage to just call it out as it is, without, if you notice, without an intonation that goes up or down. In general, the public will be much more respectful of you if you can call these things out, rather than trying to pander or trying to, say, agree just for the sake of agreeing, or follow just because someone asked, or people please. So the next time you're struggling with something like that, smile, pause, all right, and you can say a generic statement, but you can also, more importantly, call it out.
The response to that question.
On a personal note, right, just wondering, how do you feel going into your first GE, leading the party into your first general election contest?
I would say I feel the weight of responsibility, not just as Prime Minister, but as Secretary General of the party, leading the party into an election, recognizing that, as I said just now, Singapore is entering a new environment, a new global environment which will be more challenging, and there is a lot at stake for us and for how we navigate this new environment to ensure our continued survival and our continued success. But I will do my best to present my case, what the party in Singapore would over the last 5 years. And what
If you notice throughout this entire conversation, he's not stammered, not even one bit. He doesn't stammer. He doesn't gloss over his words. He doesn't repeat words. He doesn't say ahs. So he's a very clear speaker. And obviously, he's being trained to do this. And obviously, just because you're in politics or in the corporate for many years, it doesn't mean you'll be a great speaker. This is a mark of someone who is being trained. He is consciously telling himself not to repeat pause fillers. Pause fillers are what makes you appear less confident or less competent when you repeat ums and ahs and say words that don't add value to the sentence and the conversation. So he's very conscious of that, and that's what makes his line of thinking and his speech very persuasive.
and what our plans are to take Singapore forward in this next phase. And I hope Singaporeans will give me and my team the chance to serve them and to serve Singapore.
Now take a look, he's been repeating Singapore and Singaporeans. In fact, at the start, he said it's not just about the PAP party, it's about Singapore and Singaporeans. Singapore and Singaporeans, Singapore and Singaporeans. There's a reason why they do this. The reason why they do this is because they want to associate the party with the nation and its people. And when you repeat these narratives so much, when you associate things together so much, people identify with these things and it goes as a bundle, right? So if you want to build a certain identity, you pick several words that you want to be associated with and you keep repeating it again and again in almost every talking point, then it becomes really persuasive that you are part of Singapore and Singaporeans. So the implicit meaning here is we are already part of Singapore and Singaporeans. We already have the trust of Singapore and Singaporeans, right?
Sorry, following up on the previous questions as well, something you mentioned was that aside from the public service, you're also looking at the private sector for candidates, right?
We always do. I mean, it's not. This is not.
Yeah, correct. And I understand that generally it can be harder to convince people from the private sector to join politics. So can you tell us a little bit about how successful you have been this time around, and what are some of the tactics that you've been using to kind of convince them?
Well, we've continued to engage them. We've continued to engage people from across public and private sectors, and some are prepared to step forward, including in the private sector. But obviously, for someone who is in the private sector, who is very successful, for example, in his 30s or 40s, you're talking about someone who is pursuing a corporate sort of career, potentially moving into a senior leadership position in a firm, MNC or large local company, the sacrifice is much greater.
This is the first time we hear him say right? And he repeated the several times. But you realize just because he said the it doesn't really take away from his gravitas, from his confidence speaking to the press. Why? So many people think just because they say and ahs, it means they're a bad speaker. Doesn't necessarily mean so. Because he's demonstrated such quality in his communication skills that if he slips on some and ahs, people gloss over it because number one, getting buy-in through speaking is not just about the words that you say, the verbal words, but your tonality. And look at his tone throughout. It's been excellent, right? Because of it, it's very professional. It's very slow. It builds trust. It's not erratic. If you look at his buy-in thinking, he has thought through these talking points, and he answers based on listening very carefully first. And of course, everything he says, like for example, this particular reporter is asking a question where she's asking, or he or she is asking, what's your process of getting the talent? What's your tactics and strategies? He's not going to share those tactics and strategies out front. He just says, we are going to continue to engage. So every piece of information you reveal can be used by different stakeholders, different people with different agendas. So he's very careful, very mindful. In what I'm noticing from PM Wong here is he's very sharp in terms of revealing information that needs to be said and safeguarding information that should not be said. So he knows how to keep secrets really well. What I mean by this is that he knows how to speak in a way that tells people what they need to know, right? Obviously, there are some things that, like, these are trade secrets. How do they get talent? It's a war for talent, right? So he doesn't necessarily put it out there, right? He just uses the word we engage. So that's what I mean, right, by keeping secrets, right? And just to be clear here. Okay, let's move on.
And this has always been the case. It's not just now. It's not just a recent phenomenon. It has always been the case. It's always been difficult, and it remains so.
All in all, I would say PM Wong is a very experienced statesman, very experienced politician. He's very experienced at answering questions from the press, from journalists. He's very good at listening, reading between the lines, listening beyond what they're asking for, because he caught that bait that reporter was asking him. And he's really good at revealing what people need to know, because you have to understand this context here is that the general public will be listening, so he's addressing general public. Obviously, in other closed door engagements, he will be more specific to what he needs to share. So he's very, very conscious of these things. He's very conscious of his ums and ahs, his pause fillers, and even if he does slips up on a few ums and ahs, people gloss over it. Why? Because of his buy-in thinking. He needs to be the one who has thought things through. The thinking needs to happen before the speaking. Then you can get the selling, which is to sell you the idea that he is a credible leader for the party and the team and the future of Singapore and Singaporeans. So in general, an excellent communicator. This is a mark of someone who has definitely been trained, definitely very intelligent and very sharp. So these are all the things you can learn, and I hope that you watch the next episode where we dissect more of such speeches here during the Singapore 2025 general elections.